So we're going to create a dynamic tagging, create a dynamic group, so that any activities that is logged as a threat along here will then be tagged. It will create an incident, it will run through a playbook, and then XSOAR will block the IP, and then we'll look at creating a workflow where we decide how malicious that may or may not be, whether it's just a blocked, if it's going to be unregistered, and all this will be done without having to commit or even touch the firewall. We'll also look at the firewall to see that it's done it, but this essentially could be, if you imagine you're asleep at night wearing your super dead pajamas, all is well, and then somebody decides to burn the midnight oil. Let's say you've got split tunnel VPN, and they go off, they do whatever, and they pick something up and they try and get through, and it shoots down your tunnel. Then, without you even doing anything, that has been disabled. The IP has been blocked. You can even then completely quarantine the host that's infected. You can get as funky as you want to, frankly. Okay, so we're going to approach it from a simple point of view at the minute. So we're going to create the group, we're going to create the tagging, and then we're going to create the playbook and the incident, and see it all the way through to the end. Okay. So objects log forwarding, because this is where we're going to begin our chain of issues. On here and update it, because I've obviously already forwarding. And what we're going to do is we're going to got the syslog down there. I'm going to come to built-in actions and add. Okay, we're going to give it a name. Blacklist IPs. Not with that at the start. Okay, so the target is going to be the destination address, because we're going to block the suspicious destination address. Registration. So local user ID it's the redistribution of the tags. So this is local on the firewall. If you were to go for Panorama, it would be Panorama that would be redistributing the tags, and then remote user ID is for if you're using another user ID agent. It actually requires a HTTP profile to be configured as well, so that you can redistribute the tags via HTTP. Timeout 0 means it doesn't time out. If you were just to be doing this sort of locally, or if you didn't want to make any decisions about it and you didn't want to cause any productivity issues, you could set a timeout here for, say, 5 minutes. The tag registers for 5 minutes and then it unregisters. So then you're back where you were. Okay, so we're going to put 0 because we want to make a decision through the incident on XSOAR. And then we're going to use black as our blacklist. It is case sensitive, so remember that for later on. Okay, and okay, blacklist IPs, all is well. Okay, so coming to policies, because dynamic address groups and user groups have to be referenced in the policy from which we picked up. We can go to the dropped badness. And what we're going to do in here is we're going to add the group. So we're going to add an address group. Going to call it blacklisted incidents, because I can't think of anything else. Make it dynamic, and the match criteria is going to be the black tag. Okay. Okay, and that's going to be to our destination, and that will be blocked, and then you can see it there. And if we look in it, it will give us a value which will be nothing at the minute. So it's a blacklisted incident, dynamic, and that's the tag that it's going to match on. Okay. And if we quickly check in here, we can see that now we have dynamic group that was created. And that is it pretty much on the firewall. Now we just need to commit. Once we've committed it, we can then start looking at creating the playbook and everything on the XSOAR. So I'll commit it here, and we'll crack straight on with that. So now we have the threat being logged and tagged. We need to create our playbook in order to do something with it. Not as difficult as you may think, and if you're into automation, yeah, I mean, a lot easier. So go to playbooks. Okay, oh, I should just say, shouldn't I? So if we go back to instance quickly, I'll just show you the instance that I've generated. So these have come from my firewall, generated them just, well, a little bit back, assigned them all to me, and I'll explain why in a minute. And now we're going to create the playbook. Okay, so it's playbooks, new playbook, playbook triggered, all good. Give it a name. Response, how about that? That sounds alright, doesn't it? And then save it. So it's all good. Okay, so our first task, when we get the login and we get the incident, what we want to do is we want to quantify that and see if we need to take action on it, whether anybody needs to be alerted. So we're going to do that by looking at the severity of it. The severity of it comes from the firewall. It comes in the log, and we will map this so that high, medium, high and critical, let's say, is that would result in the destination IP being blocked, an email being sent, notes being made, so on. And informational and low, you could probably just send an email, I guess, although you probably tend to get spammed. But informational, certainly you just want it to close the incident, because it's not really, or maybe even leave it open for the analyst to see it the next day. Also, we want to, in either situation, we want to assign it to an analyst. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at doing is quantifying the severity of the incident and then taking a decision based on that. So in a new task, I'm going to go for conditional because we want it to take a decision based on this. So let's call it check severity. Okay, and this is where we get into one of the big strengths, I think, of XSOAR is the fact that if like me, you are sort of, you're not an automation guy or something like that, you can still make your way through it because it helps you as you go. So the condition for yes, we're going to change that to the condition for bad. And what we're going to do is we're going to look for the incident details. We're going to search for severity, which is there. And the severities are 0 for unknown, 0.5 for informational, 1 low, 2 medium, 3 high, 4 critical. Well, I mean, you get the idea. So we want to look for severity greater or equal to 2, because that's what we want to take action on for our bad branch. For our other, which is okay rather than good, we're going to go again for severity. You can spell it right. severity in your own time. Close. And we're going to go less or equal to 1, which will cover our information all down. Okay. Now, just to prove this is going to do what we want it to do, because we don't want to go through and then, no, hang on, we realise something doesn't work, we can test it. And the reason I assigned everything to me was because you can only test with your own incidents. So, go to an existing investigation. I happen to know this is a medium. Okay, so pull the details from it. We can see we've got the bot score, the IP, XFE, because we could pull any of these and use these as a reason. But what I'm going to do for this, really simply, is come down to severity, which is there, which is 2, which we know is medium. So if we now test our rules against that, we know it's going to go bad. If we go to this one, which I happen to know for a fact is critical, give it a second. Severity 4, test it against that, we know it's bad. And then if we come down to email update, which I can't remember what that one was actually. Severity 0.5, so that's informational, and we know it's going to go okay. So we know now that our bit of decision making works. So we can save that and we can link this to this. And from there we're going to add a task on this side and a task on this side for the whole graphical niceness of it. And on this branch we're going to create the automation to block the destination IP, assign an analyst to the incident, and then email the analyst with those details, and then wait for the manual investigation. And on the other side we're going to, I don't know, we'll probably just leave it open for a manual investigation, but we won't email or anything like that, because there's no point dragging somebody out of bed for an informational or an unknown. You could argue, I guess, an unknown maybe, but one of the big things that we're trying to stop here is the security alert fatigue. So we're going to try and make this as intuitive as possible and as usable as possible. Okay. So again, just a quick recap on there. If we go to save version, that will give us our version control. So we can say added check severity decision box, update and exit. And now if we need to roll back to any other versions, we can do. Okay, so now on to the bad branch. Okay, so things have gone bad, and we are going to assign the high severity incident to our main analyst, which is me. Okay, so assign analyst, choose automation, which is assign analyst to incident, and I'm just going to assign by my username. Save. I'm going to put that to that side there, and then just simply link that up like that. Let's see if it's gone bad. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll duplicate that for the other side, like so. That's okay, but for that we'll go for our less experienced analyst, which is Andy. Then we can, so continuing down the bad side, then our next thing would be to start retrieving some of the details, start doing some enrichment on the data that we have, the raw data. So we're going to list the IPs, and to do that we are going to come down to here and we're going to use IP, because if we use IP then it allows us to use all the integrations that we have installed, so all the instances, whereas if we just go IP info then it would be IP info virus total. You get the idea, it's not that difficult to follow. Okay, so we're going to use all of them. What we're going to do is going to get the destination IPs, because within the incident, destination IPs are probably going to be I suppose the most pertinent. Okay, and we're not going to bother with filtering, but we are going to add a transformer. The reason we're going to add a transformer is because you're going to see multiple IPs, and so what we want to do is we want to break that down so we've got unique values. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to split it, and we're going to split it on white space. Okay, so if we test, I can now show you what that would look like. Okay, so now we have a list of these. We have a list of IPs, okay? The next thing we want to do is we want to then grab only the unique ones. So there, done testing. Okay. And that is going to be our list IP. Shall we do, let's do list destination IPs, just to make it a bit more intuitive, I suppose. Okay, and that's going to come on this side because we're not worried about it on that side. Okay, now for our guy Andy there, we are going to a manual investigation, which he can then pick up the next day. You're going to give him 1 day to do it, and he can then assess everything, and then we will end the playbook there with a section header. Okay, to make that nice and tidy. Okay, but meanwhile, on the bad side, so we've listed our destination IPs. Now what we want to do is we want to block the destination IP, because we already know it's down the bad side, so we know it's the severity is high, so we want to block that IP then on the firewall, and this is where we come back to our dynamic list, dynamic group, sorry, that we created earlier. So we'll create that, and then we'll try it and we'll see. Right, so now we're going to register the IP against the tag, which is this one here. Remember, we're going to go with black for blacklist. Okay, so we're going to create a task. So we're going to block IP on firewall. This is going to be panorama register IP tag. Okay, tag we're going to register is black, and the IPs we're going to grab from the same place that we got them before. So we're going to go instant details, destination IP, filter and transform, get the destination IPs, add the transformer. So we want to, where was I? Split on I can actually just show you that actually. So if we go with test, pull it from there, just to explain the space and splitting. Okay, so essentially when we just list it from there, we end up with a list, and what I want is to change it to JSON. So I'm going to split it on white space, and then test, and then obviously we're going to remove our duplicate values because they don't make any sense. Test, done testing. Okay, all good. Alright, so we're going to register the tag black against the IPs. Alright, so now we're going to put that over there, line it up. Alright, so once we've blocked that, we've left it as well to being blocked persistent. The reason for that is because we want to then go on and do an investigation and work out whether we want to unblock it, whether there's a problem with it, or so on. So now we've blocked our IP, we can move on to the next stage. So now we've blocked our IP, we need to send an email to alert everybody and get everybody looking at the case. Okay, so alert email. Automation for this is going to be send mail. Send mail. Okay, it's going to go to whoever it's going to go to. The subject will be Cortex threat alert. And so what we can do now is within the body we can change it. We won't change it, we can customize it to show. So this is to notify of an alert level, and simply click on that. So when we go through now, we'll find, so from incident details we'll go down to severity, for instance, for this particular one. Severity, I'm straight past it. It is early. Okay. Source IP. Source IP. Destination IP. Destination IP. What other information could we give our analyst here? We could give him what else could we pull? I could pull the SLA. SLA for instance, so he knows how quickly to get on, or she. User ID if we had it, how about that? Which in this particular instance we don't. User ID. Okay, so no reply, and that will give us our email to go out. Okay. Right, so I've just added the email address in there, and we'll link this up. So now within minutes, within a minute, so to speak, we've had the log, that's triggered the playbook. We've automatically checked the severity, we decided that it's bad. We've assigned the analyst, listed out the destination IPs, we picked the ones that we want to block, and we're going to send an alert. What else would we need to do? I guess then we would just add the investigation for the analyst to get on and do their investigation. Then they can decide whether to unblock the IP from the firewall or not. And then what we'll do there is we'll let them close the incident, and we'll just end the playbook there. Save the version. Final version 1, because we'll revisit this as we go. So there we go. So that's our playbook. That's it now saved. So now we need to add it to an incident or run an incident against it and see just how that works out. So now we'll just try and run a couple of incidents against our playbooks and see if we can see what the outcome is. We can create a new incident. Sorry. We're going to call this one the test load severity. So it occurred now, tomorrow, me, classified firewall threat incident. That will run the playbook that it's supposed to. Call it low. And we will have destination IP, that's the Wicar one. Source IP, we will have any random source IP 23. There we go. Destination port 443. URL XSOAR. Didn't think we should put anything else in. State. No. Okay. Source username. No, yeah, that'll help us. Source username. So okay. So you create an instance. It's there, and if we go to it, okay, and then it started running it because it runs when we click on it, unless we say run automatically, in which case it runs. Then we'll see if I've got plenty of commands left. So we can see, though, that what it's done is it's come running down here, it's checked the severity of it. The severity is low. It's assigned the analyst, which, as you can see here, is Andy, because he's our less experienced analyst. We have the source IP, which is 126.23, which is good from and where it's got it from, and the suspicious one, which is that one. We can then look at that. So threat crowd's got it suspicious, virus total's got it good, XFE's got it good. I mean, it's taken suspicious because it always defaults to the worst one, so to speak. I mean, this is Wicar, so it's a test site, but it's a test site that allows you to download malware. So I guess that's probably the better of the two. And that's just going further into it. I mean, I don't know if you'd want to sit and start looking through all that. Okay. And then now war room, which again, as you remember, is unique to each incident. It's paused, waiting for manual input. But you can see, if we go to the top, we can see when it occurred, who owns it, what type it was, playbook that was run against it, status idle because it's waiting, destination IP is there, destination port, so it's label OK, so it's executing the condition for check the severity. once it's checked the severity, its condition result is OK. So it goes to that one, assigns the analyst, username Andy, old value me, new value Andy. He's been assigned, and now it's waiting for the manual investigation, which we can just click on there. Say bin 9 test incident, mark as completed, and then it will run through to the end of the playbook, which we can see here and there, end the playbook, and then we can simply close that incident with test incident as a closing notes. All good, closed, awesome. And then so on to a high or critical. So test high incident. Again, that occurred today. It's been a bad day. Tomorrow, severity is going to be high. Type is going to be a firewall threat incident. It's going to pick that up itself. We will put the same, so destination IP 208 for nation port. Okay. Source IP 0.23 again. We'll do that one again. Source host name, source username. Me. Create. And if we go to it, it will run it. And now we can see it's going through all the steps. Waiting for the manual investigation. And if we look at the work plan, see it's run all the way down from the top all the way through. Manual investigation, and we can just close this one off. Like so. That will then run through to the end of the playbook, and we can close it. Close the incident as test incident. Now in this one, of course, the difference was that there was an alert email sent, so we'll have a look at the alert email as well, but just before we do that, we can see that it's high, it assigned it to me, information's there as it was before. The eagle-eyed amongst you will realise, if you're looking down in the right hand corner, that this was then filmed afterwards. And that is because I realised that I actually forgot entirely to prove that the IP had been registered on the firewall. So in objects address groups, our blacklisted incidents there, it's registered the tag is there, and if we go to the policies, we can see that it is indeed being blocked on the firewall. I mean, lesson to be learnt there. It's yeah, I'll try and do better next time. Cheers. So now back here, let's say that we want to now unregister that tag from the firewall because we've gone through, we've done our investigation, we found that it's okay. We can simply register IP tag, IPs, the tag was black. Want to execute it in our playground, which is our general playground, not the playground for the incident we've just been on. That is unregistered tag successfully, So if you now go back here and have a look, just refresh this, we can see there's now no tags, and that will now not be in the policy.